In several places earlier this semester, we've talked about meta-analyses without really talking about them. So meta-analyses are kind of cool, and they're also somewhat confusing, I think. So basically what we're doing is we're looking at the weight of the evidence. Does the evidence support our theory, right? And remember, in this particular study on whether smiling is what makes us happy, we had an effect size of 0.03, and notice that that's almost nothing. It's not even a small difference. Your book includes this meta-analysis online. Here we have an effect size of 1.29 and an effect size of 0.97, both of which are very large, right? And that helps us to recognize, to see whether this is a reliable and replicable result. Now, meta-analysis is sometimes problematic. So we may have a real problem in actually doing a reliable and valid meta-analysis, because the way that the publication system is set up, many non-significant findings have just been put in the file drawer. They've been discarded, and that's what Turner et al. have found, that if we're looking at those results that have actually been published, most of the articles are very favorable for antidepressants, and suggests that it really is helpful in terms of addressing depression. On the other hand, there are almost as many articles that have been published or that have not been published that suggest that antidepressants are ineffective, or maybe questionable in terms of findings. That's problematic. So why might a replication fail? It might be that we're only finding, we've talked about moderators before. It may be that our study works in some places and not others, perhaps with women but not men. Perhaps just by chance, we got a false negative, that in fact there's a real difference, but that statistically we're not finding it. Or perhaps there are some real problems with the original study. So, with the studies that were described in the Nature replication study, some of them had pretty small sample sizes. And with a small sample size, we can make errors in terms of, or with our hypothesis. Now, in terms of the popular media, they don't necessarily get the idea of how to replicate and the importance of replication. So a responsible journalist is going to look not just at one single flashy study, But look at the body of research, and what does this body of research suggest? So here is a study that was published in MedPage today, saying that dementia risk is tied to antioxidant levels. And they said dietary total carotenoid consumption, and in particular, lutein and zeaxanthin and lycopene were associated with reduced incidence of Alzheimer's disease and its neuropathology among 927 older adults who were followed up over 7 years. Okay, one of the things that is interesting here is, that we're looking at a pretty large sample. Right? However, several, and here's what the journalist is saying. However, several longitudinal studies about dietary components in dementia have reported null findings. Possible explanations for the discrepancies are heterogeneities in study designs and populations, differences in antioxidant status and dietary habits, and different conditions, consideration of potential confounders. So think about how the authors explain the failure to replicate. And think about the pros and the cons in a longitudinal study in this case, and maybe even the larger study. One of my suspicions is that they were looking at all sorts of different variables rather than only at these particular variables. And you know that one of the things that can happen there is that we can make an error and reject our null hypothesis just by chance. When we're trying to analyze too many different variables. Okay, I'm going to stop here and I'll see you in the next video.